the Maisa goes like this. Rabbi Yisrael from Viznitz, so he used to have the following minhag, I guess. Every day, like during the afternoon, for about like a half hour or so, he would take a spatzir with one of his gaboim. They would go on a walk, for health, whatever, just get fresh air. And so there's one particular, and they had a certain route that they would take, every single day. And they would always pass this like big mansion. And this mansion was owned by a yid, a wealthy yid, who was not, he was a maskil. He was a maskil, not religious, not necessarily, very respectful of rabbis, but far from like Yiddishkeit, especially Hasidim, that's for sure. So and every day that's what they would do, take this spatzir, pass by the house and continue going, and have that, route and come back. One particular day, the Rebbe passes by the mansion and says to his guy, let's go pay this yid a visit. Okay, so that's what they do. Fine. So the Rebbe goes to the front door, knocks on the door. The butler, whatever it is, opens the door, and the Rebbe says, I'm here. I just want to pay the landlord a visit. Fine. The Balbus. So fine. Come in. He sits down on the couch. The butler goes to call the Balbus that you have a very chashuv guest. Okay, he's very excited. He's respectful of rabbis. He comes down, and he sees the rabbi sitting on the couch with his rabbi, and the rabbi nods. He's just sitting there. Okay, so the Balbus is he's like a Yakisha guy, he's very proper and everything. He also sits down just across on the other couch, and they're just looking at each other. He's waiting for the rabbi to say something. He's not. Sit there for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? He's just sitting there not saying anything. And at some point, like the Balbus whispers to the Gabber, what's? I'm like, I have no idea. So fine, 10 minutes go on like this, and the Rebbe says, okay, fine. He gets up and he's about to leave. And so the Balbus quickly runs over. He said, Rabbi, thank you so much for coming. But what is this? So he said, so the Rebbe says like this, the truth is that I came here for a reason. And the reason is the Gemara says that just as there's a mitzvah to say words that will be heard, let's say words of Musar or whatever, there's also a mitzvah not to say words that won't be heard. And so there are words that I want to say that won't be heard, but I can't fulfill that mitzvah unless I'm with you, right? Just if I don't say anything to you, if I'm not in your presence, it doesn't mean anything. I have to be here and not say something to be kind of the mitzvah. So now the Balbus is very curious, like what were you going to tell me? He said, I'm telling you that you're not going to hear it. You're not going to listen. So he's like, no, but maybe I will. He said, you're not going to listen. Just tell me. If you really want to know, this is what I'm not telling you. What I'm not telling you is the fact that in the town, yesterday I found out that there's a certain old almana that has accumulated a lot of debt, and I know you are the manager of the particular bank in the town, and she owes a lot of debt to this bank. And if she doesn't pay up by this in the state, her house is going to be taken away, and it's going to be terrible. And so I am not asking you to take care of it. So the guy says to the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, it's not my bad. I'm just the manager. But what are you? He said, I can't do anything. He said, I'm telling you, that's why I'm not saying anything. That's why I'm not saying anything. And then with that, the Rebbe left. So you know what happens. So that night, the guy's sleeping. He's tossing and turning. He can't help himself, but what do I do with this lady? He comes the next day, that afternoon, he goes to the Rebbe's house, knocks on the door, he says, I took care of this. The Maisa. So, I think a little bit's connected to the parsha, Like the pasuk says, in this week's parsha, we have the mitzvah of building the Beis HaMikdash, right? So that's a mitzvah of Asuli Mikdash. It's one of the 613. And any mitzvah means it's an obligation. It means you have to make sure, the Jewish people have an obligation to make sure the Mishkan was done, which means that people have to give their funds. Yet, one of the conditions is asher nadva libay, that has to be completely voluntary. It's like, what type of business is this? Like, on the one hand, the Torah is saying, I need the Mishkan to be done, but I'm not telling you to do it. Like, sometimes this is the eitzah when it comes to a yid. Like, when a person is told what to do, very often it's like, but I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I would tell you to do. I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm telling you what I would say if you wanted to hear. And that already, just opening up that door, gets the neshama to be open a little bit. Sometimes the neshama is not ready to be given a directive like that, but the neshama is sometimes ready to, when you just let it know that something has to be done, the neshama on its own, when it's ready, when it's able to, it comes out. Just like in that Maisa. If the Rebbe would have told this Yid, this woman needs help, you have to do something, we know, he would have said, I can't, finished. But he didn't say that, he didn't tell him to do that. Sometimes that's more than telling someone directly. So the Pasuk says, again, the Rebbeinu Shalom needs a Mishkan to be built, I'm not telling you to do it. And then it gets done. All right, so Rebbeinu Shalom, we should be zeicha to get things done. Thank you, Hashem.